Welcome to the Not Badger for the week ending January 7th, 2017. Here, thanks to our privileged straight cis men who are trying to work off the guilt from their crimes of historical and felony oppression, we have compiled a collection of funny, interesting, and hopefully useful clips from our most watched shows. Enjoy the spoils of their hard work. In the current year plus 2 shitpost stream, we shitpost about the previous current year. I don't even know why I need to explain this shit.
We have no right to be proud of anything.
Well, we
These are
should.
just a bunch of
Yeah.
fucking misogynists.
We should always be insecure at all times.
Pride is not a right; it's a privilege.
Well, it depends. Certain kinds of pride are privileges.
Well, it's racial pride. I think I might be in the one race that isn't allowed a pride parade. Oh well.
Yeah.
I think you're one sexuality that isn't allowed. Oh yeah, one sexuality that isn't allowed a pride parade. One gender that isn't allowed to feel proud.
Well,
and
that's-
I don't need a parade to feel proud. So there you go.
But you're not allowed to feel proud at all. We should all wallow in shame.
Well,
Or, you guys are well. I guess not you, Brian, but Scott
Yeah, me
and Mike are cis white het men.
Yep.
And you, but you can also feel shame. You can also feel shame, Brian, because you are a cis het man.
yep.
But
less
you
shame.
of shame of your skin.
Yeah, I
You
am
got the
not.
brown privilege that's so popular these days.
We did retain 11,559 of you, so we got to do better next year. We gotta work harder, friends, like people listening, shitlords. We gotta work harder to increase that number of people out the door versus the people remaining, because it's still higher. The people remaining is still higher than the people who leave.
We're a high content channel. People subscribe to us and then realize that we upload.
Don't
an
get
hour every day.
defensive.
No, I'm just explaining it because it's interesting.
No, it's
People
not.
might
It's not
subscribe, but they
interesting.
know we're still here. They know, all right, I don't need to be subbed to the badges. They upload every
Oh,
day.
come on! Don't get defensive. Let's not get into like the explanations. They left because they don't like us. We know.
Mhm.
We know you left because you don't like us. But that's
Well,
okay.
let's not get on the cynical.
So,
Oh, really? Is that the cynical? I guess
That
you're
is
right.
the
Or
cynical, yeah.
I guess how's the neutral conspiratorial answer?
It's somewhere in between the two, as usual. I'm glad we covered both ends.
Or alternatively, it's because YouTube's algorithm hates us.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's the
saying
end
that
that
it's-
we don't want to talk about.
I'm not
There's
saying
no
that
way of
necessarily.
not sounding like a conspiracy nut job on YouTube, but so let's just plow on.
Well, you know what? Putting two and two together, and the thing is that if you don't aren't ever allowed to do that, then you really can't think. Thoughts become conspiracies. But I mean, I'm going to point out, it doesn't have to be that the YouTube hates us or doesn't like our content. It could simply be that they've decided to create an algorithm that doesn't reward the particular behaviors that we engage in on this channel. So it could just be a completely neutral thing like that. It doesn't have to be that they have it out for us. And that wouldn't be a conspiracy. It would just be like an observation of the situation. And the fact is that they don't make their algorithm like what they base it on public. So how will we know?
It's sort of the online equivalent of getting the graveyard slot on the TV schedule because no advertisers want to put their commercials in the middle of your product.
except for like 976 Bone.
What?
You're old, Brian. Nobody knows what a 976 number is.
Yeah, but we're a bit like porn. We're a bit like dirty specialist porn.
2016 was a great year for memes. What were some of the dankest memes of 2016? Can you guys think of any? I know. Yes, Pepe was. He
was 8 years old. He just started to reach puberty when he made it to the big time.
Is it 8 years
I'm
for
so
when
proud of Pepe.
Is it 8 years when a meme reaches puberty? Is that
Apparently, yeah. Although
okay.
Harambe got there overnight. So I don't know how that happened.
This is true.
God. Hey, Hey, let us not be remiss and forget that boy. He came so quickly onto the scene on his unicycle and very quickly left. Thank God.
Yeah, well, but he didn't stick around
for.
he didn't stick around for too long, probably because of Pepe. But hey, that's none of my business.
Oh,
Happened to a black boy. Oh shit! I guess we can give this meme to the trolls. Run!
Alex Jones. So, this guy's been on the internet for a while. Okay.
what is he not been terrible though? I mean,
No,
come on,
no.
Alex Jones.
He's. I've always find him to be. I used to find him to be completely ridiculous, but this year I think that people have liked him more than ever, and it probably just because he pissed off Cenk, because
Well, no. Because when he went on Piers Morgan, and the mainstream media actually gave him a fucking platform.
Yeah.
So they were sort of legitimizing him in a way because he was kind of getting exposure in that realm. So he got kind of big this year because of that.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I remember the big for me he probably was before that, but I'm the big thing that everyone was talking about was when he was at the was it the RNC, and he went to the and he went on there and he was like, we're trying to be nice here. You guys are pissed. You're yelling, and Cenk is like, we talk about Saudi Arabia all the time. So that was like a great moment in time. What was that, Scott?
Oh, when he almost went toe to toe with Uyghur. That was
Yeah.
Oh, I was hoping they were going to blows, man. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because frankly, I think fucking Jones would have laid Uyghur's ass out. I really do. Because as much as Uyghur, he's just all fucking bluster. I think Jones would have just cracked him once in that big ass jaw and put his fat ass.
Oh,
down.
for sure. I'm serious. I've seen, like, if you look at young pictures of Alex Jones when he was young, the good motherfucker was pretty swole, man. I was like, damn, what the fuck, But he's breaking the conditioning. He was right about more things than I expected. And I wouldn't say he was right. I would not say he was right about everything, but he was right about. I thought he was right about nothing. Like, originally, I was just like, this guy's not right about anything. He's just talking crazy. And then, like, the whole globalist thing, that's the thing that he loves to bring up so much. It's like, oh, wait, there's some truth to this. What? What world is this?
Broken clock strike 2 times a day, all
Sure.
that sort of thing. Right?
Yeah, sure.
There's that. It's a law of averages in a lot of cases.
But it is. But I'm just saying that I was surprised that that he was at all correct.
Yeah, because it's like it's like in one sentence you hear him bloviating about water filters and and then the next thing it's like, oh wait a minute, he might have a point there. It's just like, whoa, this is kind of weird.
He likes to talk about things that nobody's talking about, which usually leads him to the craziest sort of tinfoil hat conspiracy theories. But this year he noticed that nobody's talking about Hillary, like not even Fox News, because even they hate Trump. So him and his whole shtick came together and went, right, look at what Hillary's doing. And that proved to be quite easy. It's easier to expose Hillary than it is to expose the global new world order. Because Hillary's one person and one entourage with a hell of a checkered history. And because there were so few people digging into that, he sort of became famous, and so did Paul Joseph Watson. They all sort of exploded this year.
Oh yeah, Paul Joseph Watson did blow up a lot. Lawrence Southern blew up this year. Blair White blew up this year. They were making a lot of content, and they picked up a lot of ground. By the way, I don't know if it's a coincidence, but all of them blew up after they were on our show. I'm just saying, we may have had an influence on that.
We gave him that Badger bump.
Honey Badger Radio, we boost everybody that comes on our show. So if you want to see your YouTube channel explode, come on as a guest.
Badger bump.
Did you just praise us for something? That's not allowed.
The praise goes only to Keck.
Yes, right.
Yeah, because we're the worst thing on the internet, Brian.
We are the worst thing. Because Allison is the worst thing.
How have I changed? I think I'm a bit happier, actually. Honestly.
Really?
And I think, honestly, and not to be too mushy about it, but doing the Badgers has kind of been part of that. I really look forward to Tuesday nights. I really, honestly, sincerely do. It's fun, and the feedback that I've gotten from people that watch the show has been great. It's been fantastic, actually. So yeah. That's how I change mostly, I think. Honestly. I mean, aside from doing my own thing, the big and robot thing that me and Action Points do.
Do you think that your like any of your sort of opinions, views, beliefs, any of those things see a shift or anything like that?
I don't know if they've seen a shift so much as they've just been a bit more informed, I think, because of the involvements I've had in as far as honey badgers go. Because I wouldn't say that I'm an MRA. I wouldn't. I mean, I believe in equal rights and all that sort of
What?
stuff.
Say it!
But
What?
Say it!
Hello on here.
Or get out!
I know it's terrible, right?
Hey, MRAs are just about equality, guys. So you either are an MRA or you're a bigot, and there's no... I can't even keep the joke up. It's so ridiculous.
No non-MRA allowed. No.
I know. I'm sorry. But yeah, no. I mean, it's just like I've become more informed in that regard.
Repudiate.
For sure. Because it's something that that I obviously believed in before, because I've had firsthand experiences with a lot of things that are part of that system, I guess, if you want to say. So it's like, yeah, it's just it's reinforced my ideas to a certain degree, but it's also helped expand them and deepen them a bit, I think. So yeah, it's been an education. It really has. So yeah.
All right.
I think I've evolved as a human somewhat, if you will.
Not
to be too grandiose. Not to be too grandiose,
Right.
Yeah, I think I've evolved.
Mike? Do you
personally?
Yeah.
Well, April this year was when I posted my last letter, and then I did another thing I've never done before, which is quit a job. Except once, I quit my job because I was moving from a city to a different city. It was the same job, oddly enough. But yeah, I quit my day job as I was advised not to so many times, and just in time for the working class revolution. So I've had to get used to not being working class again. It's a lot like when you're on the dole, except you're getting paid a huge amount of money from very generous people across the world. And yeah, I've learned what I'm missing as well as what I'm gaining. Because honestly, when you're not being forced to get up in the morning and have exercise, assume you'll carry on doing it by yourself, but you don't.
Yeah.
It's so important to have a routine that involves
moving
some
around
exercise and some getting up on someone else's time rather than your own to develop some discipline. Because this is probably part of the whole millennial problem of the whole helicopter parented participation trophy generation, that they've never had to fucking do anything. So I'm going back to understanding what they're going through. And trying not to be a gigantic hypocrite about anything, by keeping as busy as possible, even facing my fears, like going out and talking to my friends, even if it involves flying across an ocean and such.
There you go.
I don't know.
No, that's awesome. Allison,
What?
did you even hear what I said?
Allison checked out like 10 minutes ago.
What do you want from me? What do you want from me?
Hashtag worst part of Honey Badger Radio.
Do you want a successful stream, or do you want me to talk about myself?
Oh, I know, but this is like your least favorite thing to do, probably. Or is it your most favorite?
I had to do it. Now you have to do it.
Go ahead.
Okay, what is the question?
The question I was asking, which I know is a difficult one, is how do you feel you've changed in the past year?
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I could go first while you think about that if you want.
Oh, I don't know. I guess you could go first, and I can try again. But
all right, I'll come back to you. Think about it.
Go again.
All right. Well, for me, I think I would go with what Scott was saying. I think that because I also quit my job at the end of 2015, and I graduated from college. So suddenly I went from having like zero time and still managing to cram, polecat shows. I think that was really the only one that I was running, and to being able to like free up my time enough to actually really focus on it. And you could see it too, because I looked at what I had been doing before, and it was, you know, I was working within my limitations. So, you know, we didn't do a lot of write-ups back then. I didn't have OBS set up. I didn't even, you know, I was trying to find a way. We were still doing it through Google Hangouts, and it was just, you know, there was a lot of things that I didn't have time to do, but I was managing to work out, you know, with the limitations I had. So once I quit my job and graduated college, I was able to focus on the show, and I was really, you know, learning everything as I went along. Like I do not, by any stretch of the imagination, claim to be a technical genius at all. So this is all like a constant struggle, which is partly why, you know, I do run into technical problems, and I apologize for that. And I appreciate you guys being so patient with me as I do so. Another thing is that I noticed that in the last year, not only have I been, as Scott was pointing out, you know, feeling like my opinions are sort of they're not just opinions. Like that's like, I would say, because, you know, you ever like get in an argument with an ideologue and they say, well, you know, if they can't win, they just sort of like sum it up to saying, well, you have your opinions and I have my opinions. Well, I'm like, you know, really becoming sort of committed to trying to like argue from the point of view of facts versus opinions. So when these things come up, I can say, well, look, there are cases where I'm making an opinion known, but in these cases, this is not an opinion-based discussion. This is about facts, and here are the facts that I have. And if you have, and also learning to be open to changing your mind and being humble enough, I guess, or modest enough that if some new information comes out that you didn't know, or if someone is privy to something that you don't know, you can alter your opinion and not like get so caught up in being right, but rather, you know, trying to like get all of the facts straight. So and yeah, I mean, I run into that a lot. I don't mind being wrong. I don't mind you know, changing my position based on new info. So that's something that I had to do a lot or you know, like learn to do this year. I also became way more political than I ever have been. I've ignored politics most of my life. I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't like it. And you know, I'm far more interested, not just in like state politics, which is what usually people think about when the topic of politics comes up, but more so like politics in the realm of, you know, global politics, social politics, cultural stuff, like all of these things and how they relate to each other. And all of it is very, very fascinating to me. I actually find like a lot of regular like stuff that people typically find interesting pretty fucking boring, nowadays anyway. So I don't know, like that's probably, for me, those are some of the more interesting things. And yeah, I mean, I struggle with balancing my my home sort of, you know, social life, like my friends and everything, with the social life that I have online with you guys. And but I'm really glad that I have this problem, because, you know, I value you guys as much as I do my friends here. And I think it's something that I also look forward to doing. I like doing the Polecat, and I enjoy doing the Doge and Bunny show quite a bit, and you know, and I especially enjoy getting guests. I mean, I got to talk to Cassie J, Jordan Peterson, even briefly, because Allison ran all over it. I got to talk to lots of great guests.
Very attractive.
I got to talk to lots of great guests, and I got to go to great places, and I hope that we get to do more of that this year. So all of this has been very cool, and I feel like more cultured, more sort of open-minded, and more conviction for my beliefs and doing the show, and I think it's very important.
We got a cave, which, well, not a literal cave, a house. Although it's a little bit cave-like, I suppose.
I guess a literal cave wouldn't be bad if it had, as long as it's got internet and outlets.
Yes.
A house is kind of like a cave. A house is an artificial cave. You get a bunch of bricks and stones and put them in some grass. And look, you can go into some rocky things.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we did get we got a business location, and we got a whole hell of a lot of people upset that we got a business location.
Wait, they're upset about it? Why?
Well, I mean, not everybody. Obviously, there were a lot of people who thought it was a great project and funded it. But there were a few people who were like, "Oh my God, you're stealing from men. Why aren't you creating a men's shelter? Why
Right.
aren't you sheltering a homeless man?" Well, you realize it costs $250,000 a year, so we'd shelter him for 2 months and then throw him on the street. Because this is about making Honey Badger Radio separate for me, a separate entity that could potentially go on longer than myself. And that's really vitally important, because otherwise I'm not working towards anything at all. I'm just working towards creating a living for myself. And then whatever service we do for the community goes poof as soon as I either die or can no longer do Honey Badger Radio, or just get so fucking sick of it that I would rather, I don't know, die in a ditch than do anymore. So yeah, like this is about creating something that will live in perpetuity and continue to service the community. That's the hope, and I can't do that without starting to make it separate from myself. So that's one of the things that I came to the realization this year. I want to work towards something that's meaningful, and it's not going to be meaningful to me if it doesn't last. So that's why I'm making the effort to put resources towards Honey Badger Radio instead of myself. And that's really what this is. Like creating the cave, creating the office space is putting resources towards Honey Badger Brigade, Honey Badger Radio. It's not putting resources necessarily towards myself. I mean, in some ways it's easier to do the work that I need to do with the actual space to do it in. But for the most part, this is about building Honey Badger Brigade as a separate entity from myself. And if, like I said, if I don't, it won't last. This is another thing that I discovered in 2015. The entire conversation around Islam is boring. I'm done. Like it bores the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
I will say one last thing. If you're going to make an equivalence statement, I'm going to ask you what you're basing it on, what evidence, and how you've come, what kind of equation you're using to make the equivalent statement.
I find the events surrounding the actions of radical Islam to be darkly hilarious. This is as bad as that is. I guess it's a conversation starter, but I know where Alice is coming from. Like when people are actually talking about it, you're not hearing anything new. They're just repeating the same old thing over and over and over. For me, the big thing is, okay, Mike, what was that?
The immigration problem to Europe is a new thing, and that's why there's sort of a new sort of generation of pushback against that. But I'm sick of hearing it as a gendered problem. I mean, it stands to reason if you send millions of almost entirely men over here, then you're mostly going to get women raped. So yes, rape is a bigger problem now, but you know, we don't need to call it a rape culture, because you know where that term came from. It's a dog whistle that works on several levels. Yes, Islam is a problem we're going to have to deal with, but you know, it overlaps so easily with what feminists want to do, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a conversation I want to have on gendered terms, because I don't think any of us understand the gendered terms on which Islam is laid, in general, let alone in the countless tribal forms of Islam that are now wandering across Europe, because there's no fucking rules when you got that many people with no families with which to, you know, cohere things.
In Polecat Cast number 94, we look back on some of the best insanity of the previous year, guided only by our meme magic.
Current Year +2 Electric Boogaloo by Mike J. As we speak, the prevailing zeitgeist is that 2016, also known as Current Year +1, was a bad year. How bad? Totes bad. It was just the worst. I mean, haven't you heard? Britain voted in a referendum to leave the European Union. The Democratic National Committee imploded on itself, and worst of all, Donald J. Trump won the race for the White House. Oh, and I think some actors and musicians died or something. What I'm trying to say is that 2016 was absolutely horrible if you were a progressive. For the rest of us, 2016 wasn't really that bad. I'd even go so far as to say it was pretty good. Serious blows have been dealt to the globalist agenda. We've seen what power the common man can wield when we stand up in unison and say with our votes, enough is enough. And we've also confirmed the strength of meme magic. Keck be praised. That's not to say that 2016 has been all sunshine and rainbows. The amount of lone wolf style, totally not ideologically driven terrorist attacks, I see what you did there when you wrote driven, keeps on rising. Universities continue to be breeding grounds for social justice indoctrination, and censorship continues to be used as a weapon, whether it be from Reddit CEO Jack Dorsey against users on the The Donald, or from feminists against Cassie J and her documentary The Red Pill, as well as the witch hunt for fake news on the part of Mark Zuckerberg. 2016 wasn't a perfect year. There were low points and there were high points, just like any other year. But for those that made 2016 sound like it was the end of the world and just the worst year ever, 2017 has 6 words for them. Hold my beer and watch this.
The thing that really sticks out to me the most was when we got DMC8 on a live stream. That was like, just on a personal note, because that was so fucking funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's like apparently, somebody was paying attention and we got under somebody's skin to the point where they put the kibosh on us live. And I thought that was fucking hilarious.
We put cock on the internet that one time. Well, we were ultimately responsible for cock being put on the internet. Bering was our guest, and he was penultimately responsible, but it was our fault.
Wait a minute.
That was an interesting episode as well.
So
I guess
Oh.
guess you could say we kind of cocked things up there.
Hey-oh.
We may have been dicks a bit. Max, you were saying something?
No, I was just gonna say, like, are we the OG cock posters or something? Because I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, to give you a little bit of backstory, we got a fireside chat with Bering and Sugar Tits, and it was like the first time we've ever had them on in any capacity. And I guess Bering didn't understand how Google Hangouts works, but I sent Bering the Google Hangouts link, and he joined us, but he also tweeted it out. So he tweeted out the Google Hangouts link, which basically meant everyone on the internet that followed Bering on Twitter could get into the Hangout. And sure as the sun rises in the east, there were a bunch of dicks, literally dicks, in the stream, coming in and shouting with penis profile pictures. And
they also rise.
Which also rises.
It doesn't have to necessarily be in the east.
There you go. No, that's true. So yeah, we did have some our stream got raped, literally. There was a time where a lot of people would come out and sort of white knight for the feminists putting it up, especially men, or they would essentially accept their original sin of being born with a penis and all that. But I'm noticing now that there's a lot more pushback from that front. A lot of people that are they've had enough and they're fighting back. They're arguing. They don't put up with as men. They don't put up with basically being told that there's something wrong with them just for being male, and they fight back. They point out double standards. I'm seeing it more and more, and that's pretty cool too. I think that there's sort of like a general attitude, basically, that people are getting a little. That doesn't mean that we can rest on our laurels or anything, but it's just something that I've noticed.
Let's hope.
Well, here's the thing that's good about that is that instead of just the general, or instead of people like us who kind of focus on these sorts of things, it's the general public that's starting to push back.
That's what I mean.
They're starting to get to the point. They're starting to get to the point where it's like, okay, you know what? Enough is enough. Because generally, you don't really see change until the general public starts to tire of something. Like there's always going to be the activist and there's always going to be the outspoken individual that has a thing to say about something. But until you get the general public involved and until you have them really stepping up and saying, all right, there's a problem here, then like you said, that's when it becomes, kind of important, because the average person is being affected by it and they're seeing the problem with it and they're saying, okay, this does not work. So, that is a great thing that has been happening this year. I think we kind of see these kind of cycles going, usually like for about, the way I've seen it has been about 10 to 15 years of kind of calm, and then you get a 5-year burst of fucking craziness. And we're about in the 4th year of the craziness right now, and things are starting to turn back where people are kind of like going, okay, maybe all this crazy feminist bullshit and all this other nonsense that's going on isn't such a great idea, and maybe we need to fucking talk about it and actually hold these people accountable for their ideas.
We don't need to teach kids about queerness or straightness or we need to teach them how to read and how to do arithmetic. We need to teach them how to use logic and reason, and let them figure themselves out as they go, and just teach them not to be mean to each other. Don't bully people in general for any reason. That pretty much covers it all.
That's why Hannah's my intellectual foil.
It's one of the things that really infuriates me about the sort of progressive pushers, I guess you could say, is this: we need to get kids younger and younger and start indoctrinating them with this stuff so that they will be better people. And it's not so they will be better people. It's because you're lying to them, and you think that you can convince them better before they're old enough to think for themselves.
In the last quarter of 2016, anti-regressives like us and everybody else that's watching us, we were blessed to have a new academic enter our collective consciousness, following the lead set by people like Based Mom and Gad Sad. We had Jordan Peterson. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the controversy, like last September, a new piece of legislation was introduced to Canadian Parliament titled Bill C-16. Now, the bill seemed rather innocuous. They were just adding the realms of gender identity and expression as a guaranteed right and freedom to the Canadian Charter. However, Professor Peterson from the University of Toronto noted that the basic language of the document could lead to a potential issue regarding gendered pronouns. Specifically, it could incriminate those who choose not to use them because they aren't integrated into common English parlance, or because, they're obviously commonly associated with radical left ideology. And from the beginning of October to now, Mr. Peterson has been invited on several news and entertainment programs, including Honey Badger Radio. And at this point, it seems that the stress of this circumstance is starting to consume him, because a few days ago, Mr. Peterson, New Year's Eve,
I think it was New Year's Eve, yeah.
Yeah, he put out a video, and it just broke my heart. I nearly broke out in tears, because he broke down in tears at the prospects of our civilization's future, lamenting how so many collectivist ideology rather than individualist ideology. And this is apparently just, you could see it by the look on his face in that video, that it's causing him so much distress, because he notes how embracing collectivist ideology has turned out in history, because that's his life's work, and as we all know, it's not very good. So hopefully, Professor Peterson is able to feel better soon. Hopefully he's taking a well-earned break prior to the beginning of the new school year. And he can address whether it's his physical or mental health that is ailing him. Now, obviously, we on Honey Badger Radio support him thoroughly, and we're going to, I guess, discuss what his story has meant to us over the past few months. Let's just get to the top 5. These, obviously top 5s are subjective. One person's top 5 can differ from mine. Doesn't make mine any better than yours, and vice versa and all that, so just bear with me. Number 5, I don't know if you guys remember this one, but her name was Annalise Nielsen.
I do know that name. Give us a little bit of story about who's Annalise Nielsen.
The girl that complained about the hula dancing doll.
Oh, yes!
The Uber
This is
passenger.
going to go on Gawker.
Yeah.
It's going to be
Yeah, you're going to be Gawker famous.
The continent of
didn't
Hawaii.
care about
The question on everybody's mind with regard to her was whether she had more vocal fry or more brain fry.
I wonder if she's related to Callie from the Valley. You know. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, but I don't really know what happened to her. I know she closed her Twitter account and a troll took it over or something. But after that video, she died out. But it just stuck in my mind because of just how ridiculous it was. And number 4, I guess we could have just said the Young Turks as an organization, but that would sort of be cheating. So I just chose Anna Kasparian because, she's better than all of those guys.
Because you know what? I think I'm better than you. I'm saying that. I'm fucking better than you. I have no respect for women that voted Trump. None.
Yeah. You are 100% deplorable. Let me just condemn half of the population. That makes great sense for the entire media organization known as the Young Turks. But, I guess that's sort of... No, I wasn't going to make that joke.
Get off the stage, you fat fuck.
I'm against body shaming, but you're a fat fuck.
Yeah, fat shaming is wrong. Just the fact that somebody could do that, just when they're trying to change their life. Get off the stage, you fat fuck!
Oh, democracy, thy name is Kasparian.
Yeah, she makes me proud to be deplorable.
Right. And anyway, speaking of Carl the Cuck, number 3 is, the guy informing us all that we're all...
white male!
White male! You're a fucking white male!
He brought us a song.
Yes.
Fucking Skrillex.
What else needs to be said?
That's great, Max, because Annalise Nielsen had I don't know how long that video was. It had to be 5 minutes, right? And then Anna Kasparian's been on the Young Turks for years, but Aid Skrillex trumps them both with one line. That's talent.
It's important that you see his face while he says that line. On account of him being fucking a white male.
I would love to see
being fucking a white male.
I would love to see dueling what is it called? Auto tunes between him and Anna Kasparian. Just she says something and out comes, "You're a fucking white male."
Yeah, that's right. I'm fucking better than you.
Yeah, and you know what? The reason why I had Aid Skrillex above Anna Kasparian is at least with Anna Kasparian, she plays the role of an intellectual, even though she's clearly a faux intellectual. Mm-hmm. She at least says these stupid things and makes it sound eloquent. But whereas with AIDS, it's just blatant. It's there. It's raw.
I think her pièce de résistance was "Get off the stage, you fat fuck."
Yes.
That was her
aside from that moment, yeah. Just in general, at least. Okay, like I said, it's subjective, ladies and gentlemen. But anyways, moving on to number 2, something that's a little bit more objective. Tell you that we really need to keep this hate speech off of our campus.
That's right. Trigglypuff.
And we gotta wave our hands back and forward while we're doing it.
She is the embodiment of 2016. If she is the embodiment of social justice warriors in that current year that happened. Yeah, Trigglypuff. I mean,
is that a fat joke because it's a big problem?
It is a big problem.
See what I did there?
What was that, Mike?
She's like the fairy on top of the tree. The tree has to be top heavy. It was really quite top heavy.
Oh no!
It's got to be the strongest tree. Of course, it's rape if it's hardwood, right?
Oh, you're not wrong.
Well, if it's softwood, then you're just insulted.
Yeah, no, you gotta have pine or something, because if it's hardwood, that's definitely sexist. You can't have that.
Yeah.
Well, with that out of the way, let's spruce up this list with our final entry. No, that was bad. Don't. Yeah.
Spruce. Oh, I gotcha. I heard that.
I see what you did there.
Oh no! God, stop, you guys. It's current year. Come on.
For crying out loud.
Oh.
I didn't think she could do it, but I was wrong.
Quit needling me.
You're a horrible person, Hannah.
So number 1.
I know, I'm such a sap.
Jeez.
That's definitely the root of the problem.
Oh God.
Would you just move on?
Okay.
Oh my God, Hannah. Kill-tacular.
Oh, you like it and you know it.
Punishment.
Bow to the superiority of the punishment you're receiving right now.
God.
So anyways, I was a bit indeciduous about my final entry. No, I'm kidding. But anyways, with my number one spot, does anybody want to take a guess as to who it is?
Oh,
Well,
man, that's
I'm looking
tough.
at it, so
Well,
I
I
already
mean, aside
know.
from
but-
aside from Brian, yeah, he already knows.
No.
I haven't got the
Humongous
foggiest
what?
idea, man. What is it?
Humongous
Hannah?
what?
Mike?
It wouldn't be fair because I'm looking too.
Oh no. Is it Zar Joshi?
Yes, there you
Yes.
go. We got
Oh
it. Humongous.
yeah! I didn't even look at the list. I got that shit.
Well, that's because look, dude, seriously. Annalise Nielsen, Anna Kasparian, Aid Skrillex, Carl the Cuck, Lacey Green, even Black Hitler, as hateful as that person is, and Trigglypuff. None of them genuinely frighten me the way that Zarna Joshi does. That woman is
Seriously.
scary. I mean,
He's got some fucking problems.
holy shit. She's like somebody that if you tried to like put her down for her own good, she would probably kill you and everyone in the immediate vicinity putting up a fight. I'm genuinely afraid of what she might do if she gets any power. Holy shit. I hope
She's
she
the
never
kind of
has
person-
kids.
She's the kind of person who would hold a gun to your head and then say, "Stop holding that gun to my head." Like, what do you do? What do you do if that
No.
happens?
Yeah, she's like, you're making me do this. You're making me hurt you. She's like that kind of fucking was it mommy dearest kind of thing going on.
No
Holy
wire
shit,
hangers.
dude. Oh, God. No wire hangers, yeah. Oh.
Yeah, during that entire video, I'm just like, when she's saying humongous what, I'm like, I want to be like the role of what's his name from Pulp Fiction and say humongous what again? Say it, I told you, mother.
Say it one more goddamn time.
I thought 2016 was such a strong year. I mean, blockbusters notwithstanding, it's like, all the money that they made, but there were a lot of fantastic films that came out this year.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a ton of junk, but there was I can't remember, like, probably within the last 10 years that there's been a year that has been as strong as this one, has been consistently as strong as this, like Fantastic Beasts, Captain America. Like, there was another movie that I saw that was actually kind of a nice little surprise. It was Nicholas Hoult and Kristen Stewart. Is this movie they did called Equals. It's this little independent sci-fi thing, kind of a Logan's Run kind of thing. And there was just tons and tons of really fantastic film that came out this year. This was an amazing year for film. A lot of great things happened, I think.
Absolutely. If there's one great thing that we can take away from 2016, something that we can look back with positive remembrance about, it's absolutely movies. See, and what I do, aside from Honey Badger Radio, what I do in real life centers around the world of film. And I've been fortunate enough to see a whole bunch of movies this year that have been great. And like you said, the blockbusters, it was, let's just be honest, it was a terrible year for blockbusters, although there were some great ones, like you said, Civil War, Deadpool. But later on in the year, the last 3 months, we've got great independent movies and lesser attention for movies that will get more attention in the Oscar season, like La La Land, Manchester by the Sea, Hell or High Water, The Witch, Sing Street. Just fantastic.
Yeah, and stuff like Midnight Special was another movie that was a big surprise for me. Don't Think Twice was another great. It was a great little indie piece by Mike Birbiglia, and it had Keenan Peele. I think his name is the bald guy from the Keenan and whatever it is.
Oh, Michael Key.
Yeah, him. Thank you. Yeah, but there's been so many wonderful little films that have been out this year, along with there's been the great blockbusters as well. But there's been so much great film this year. It's been fantastic for it.
Yeah, you wonder if maybe it's possible that it's partly due to the fact that the studios are starting to ignore the political stuff and just get back to great storytelling. It's like there was a while there where it seemed like everything that came out had to be touched by a political perspective, not in a good way, not in a way where they're expressing something and showing the way things are from a political perspective, but trying to shove things down your throat. And now I'm a lot of times now you go to the theater and you sit and you watch a movie, and it's a movie. It's a great story. It might still have some deep message to it. The characters have depth and everything, but it's not preachy most of the time anymore.
Honestly,
you
I think
still get that, but it's not the overall thing.
I
Unless
think
you're
that depends
Sony
on.
Pictures.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think that depends on the individual though, and where you're looking though, because granted that in popular film there was probably a streak of that, but there was still a lot of great stuff going on with independent film and middle market type film stuff. So I mean, I think it's just a matter of where the media focuses their attention towards. But I think there's always going to be good film out there. But I think 2016, as far as like from my perspective though, from like a AAA, big budget, spectacular type movies, all the way down to really low budget, independent stuff and kind of middle markety, kind of in between stuff. I think there was a lot of really wonderful stuff that came out this year. So I don't know. I think just overall, I think this is probably one of the first times in probably, like I said, like the last 10 years that I've seen a lot of really terrible movies, but then I've seen some ones that have just been so great, that have just been so affirming and positive and fun and such great escapism.
A lot has happened in 2016. Celebrity deaths, geopolitical change, government power has shifted hands, and the rise of alternative media, amongst many other things. So why have I chosen to talk about the comics landscape? It seems pretty petty by comparison, to be honest. But please, humor me for a moment. As a kid, I loved comics. The artwork and creativity that went into them was awe-inspiring. I didn't even realize that comics were a kind of mixture of cheap, profit-driven entertainment, which is what it was intended to be, and a collectively created modern mythology, which was completely unpredictable by the people that were making it. I think to myself and wonder what people will think about comics in 1,000 years or 2,000 years. Sure, it sounds grandiose, but as a lover of Greek, Japanese, Chinese, and Egyptian mythology, even Bible stories, I'm willing to bet that those tales were also used as a form of entertainment for their time as well. But something has infected comics recently, and in 2016 it was really bad. Outside of the industry, there were cultural critics and feminists who would normally not spend a dime on comics, forming opinions about how female characters should be drawn and what covers or illustrations should be removed. They would create pressure, call for bans, and even try to ruin reputations if the artists being shamed resist. Journalists who report on comics would bring their identity politics front and center, using their platform to try and steer the market in the direction that they want it to go, giving undue praise to books that were mediocre but have the right kind of diversity, despite being cringy and dull. Within the industry, artists and writers would blatantly tell ham-fisted social justice stories with bad writing and bad art, even by comic standards. Costumes were redesigned to cover more skin or make female superheroes known for being sexually intimidating more modest. Men were turned into women, straight men were made gay or bisexual, white people were made into black, or they were made into Nazis if they were men, and the Red Skull would make good arguments against open borders, while Bor, the father of Odin, would share unsolicited opinions on Israel. Comics had become not only more political, but in a very one-sided and, in my opinion, pathetic way. I'm still waiting for Daredevil to come out as atheist. True, this medium has often been used as a way to discuss social, political, moral issues and dilemmas in the past, and I'm not going to pretend like it wasn't. But the thing is, it's almost never did this with the intention of excluding or erasing the spirit of the source material to begin with. And when it did, there was blowback. Why? Because comics are a unique medium for one very important reason. While the long-running ones have changed hands several times, writers and artists are challenged with spicing things up or adding a twist to keep the stories new and fresh. But in so doing, there was also an unspoken set of rules that you were expected to work within. That is to say, it is a shared story based on some reverence and respect for the setting, characters, and previous stories. You, as a writer or artist, were tasked with the job of trying to tell new stories without forgetting what made the characters and stories good enough for you to take an interest in telling them in the first place. The other point about politics in comics. I don't have an issue with people using the platform to peddle their politics, even if I disagree with them. I certainly don't want to take away their freedom to express themselves. Please don't mistake me here. I am, however, concerned for the sales as they are plummeting, especially at Marvel. I grew up on Marvel, and for many years they were considered to be a pretty sophisticated company in terms of their storytelling, considering their stories revolving around people in colorful tights punching and blasting each other. The main difference here is that today, the stories in politics are petty, shallow, and whiny. They don't actually dig deep enough. They are just people on their soapboxes complaining about anti-feminist Gamergate, mansplaining, and other childish, poorly argued nonsense. It's degrading. In the time of Lee and Kirby, O'Neill and Adams, Claremont, Byrne, Simonson, and many others, stories were about human experiences. They spoke to something much greater and grander than just identity politics. They talked about the human condition in a way that any person of any creed, color, or age group of both genders, yes, there are two, can relate to. That's what inclusion is. Profit motives aside, I would like to see Marvel and all of their competition become a real competitor again. It will actually only bring out the best in their primary rivals, such as DC Comics, as well as all the smaller press companies who wish to compete with them. I would like to see an industry that strives to tell compelling and engaging stories that speak to readers on a level that transcends petty and small thinking. I hope to see stories that raise questions and perhaps even invite real discussion, not sermons that preach social justice as if it's immune to criticism. I want to see comics that are fun again and perhaps don't take themselves too seriously all the time. I guess I want to see an industry that loves its work, its readers, its history, and its worlds as much as I do.
Finally, we have Dojin Bunny number 7, where we look at an academic paper that makes the claim that the environment itself in its current state is sexist because patriarchy and stuff.
This piece is written by Karen Bell from the University of Bristol. Thank you, UK, so much. And here's the abstract. Gender continues to be a relatively marginal issue in environmental justice debates, and yet it remains an important aspect of injustice. To help redress this balance, this article explores women's experience of environmental justice through a review of the existing literature and the author's prior qualitative research, as well as her experience of environmental activism. The analysis confirms that women tend to experience inequitable environmental burdens and are less likely than men to have control over environmental decisions, both of which impact on their health. It is argued that these injustices occur because women generally have lower incomes than men and are perceived as having less social status than their male counterparts as a result of entwined and entrenched capitalist and patriarchal processes. In the light of this analysis, it is proposed that environmental justice research, teaching policy, and practice should be made more gender-aware and feminist-oriented. This could support cross-cutting debates and activists in support of the radical social change necessary to bring about greater social and environmental justice more generally, and smash capitalism.
Equal access to environmental information. This study, and I don't mean to skip ahead, but I think it's unavoidable in this instance.
Yeah.
It gets into poverty and class quite a bit.
Of course it does.
Of course it does. And yeah, and there is a little kernel there that the poverty and class can impact people's access to information. However, if you're going to use poverty and class as your modifier to why people can't access information, this is not gendered. Yeah? Mm-hmm. So this study is positing that it is gendered, that women have less access to environmental information. And of course, I'm going from a Canadian perspective where we have a ton of information available. You can walk into a public library, bada boom, bada bing, you've got it, right? So the assertion that there's not equal access to environmental information on a gendered basis, total bollocks as far as I'm concerned. So right off the hop in the introduction, I'm like, no, I do not think you are going to be able to prove this.
The term gender in this context specifically exists to point out inequitable and unequal treatment. It's not even just male or female anymore. It's actually a politicized term. It says gender may be defined as a term used to emphasize that sex inequality is not caused by the anatomic and physiological differences that characterize men and women, but rather by the unequal and inequitable treatment socially accorded to them. So does that mean the word gender itself has just become a political term that is meant to measure inequality in the eyes of ideologues like this? That's what I'm getting from it.
Yes. Yeah.
You might be getting it from it, but I also like to point out that this woman is insane.
Blunt.
Should I not be this blunt? I know that this is more.
No, I've missed you so much, Allison.
But
yeah, you've missed my Dutchness.
she is insane and bitter and angry. However, she is robust.
She's robust.
She is robust, and she's making an argument.
This woman is asserting that she doesn't have access to things. However, it seems to be that the assertion relies on her particular way of viewing herself as a woman as being less capable than a man. So, in other words, she says, I don't have access to the corner store because as a woman, I can't walk a block. And it seems to me that it's not a description of reality. It's a description of her perception of her own abilities as a woman, which are very, very limited. And then she perceives that men are capable of easily walking a block, so they should do my grocery shopping for me. And if they don't do my grocery shopping for me, that is gender bias, because as a woman, I'm incapable of walking that block. But as a man, they are. And she'll use the explanation why actually women aren't less capable than men, even though I'm asserting that I am, as a woman, less capable of walking a block than a man. She'll use patriarchy to sort of fill in the gaps. So instead of just simply saying, as a woman, I am incapable of walking a block because I am a woman, she will say, due to patriarchal oppression, I am incapable of walking a block as a woman. Therefore, men are obligated to do my grocery shopping for me. And then she hides from herself the fact that what's really happening is she believes that she's incapable because she's a woman. I think this is the entirety, like this is basically the entire article summed up in her psychological reality.
Patriarchy's in the gaps.
Mm-hmm. Patriarchy's in the gaps.
Yeah.
Okay, to get back to this paper.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you have a good point. We got time, and we have so many pages. Oh my God! So to get to your point, so this paper posits a gendered and/or feminist perspective is also generally absent from environmental justice policy practice and activism. My note is maybe because it's not relevant. So yeah, and in the next paragraph, which I've highlighted. A gender or feminist perspective is required. Damn, that is a bold statement.
Is required, yeah.
Is required in relation to environmental justice, because women often live and work in circumstances that are not environmentally adequate, and this has implications for their health. And my note is, okay, and how is that different from all of the men working in coal mines, right? Or all the other incredibly dangerous and hazardous workplaces that result in men being the majority of workplace deaths, the majority of OSHA that claims, yeah? Mm-hmm. So, but apparently environmental adequacy affects women more. Magically!
There has been substantial work on the gender aspects of environmentalism within the academic fields of ecofeminism, feminist environmentalism, and feminist political ecology. Yes, 3 different feminisms that relate to the environment. These investigate women's environments and women's environmentalism, but vary slightly in their emphases. Ecofeminism proposes that women's domination under patriarchy is connected to the domination of nature. Feminist environmentalism argues that women experience... I know that's why this is a lol what thing.
Men build cages by exploiting nature. Men build cages for us to live in that just happen to have air conditioning and really much more elaborate bathrooms with with screens and things and chase lounges so you can sit and gab with your friends. And men build build these cages, and they have restaurants and malls that are there specifically to cater. And they built these cages so much just for us that they're just such even more cages. Men exploit us by building exactly to our specifications, and they destroy the environment to do it, and that's how it's all connected.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
I think you're getting close. We may still make a feminist out of you yet.
Let's continue to see this as patriarchy benefiting men. Because God knows there were no factory accidents and disasters throughout the Industrial Revolution that majority affected men. I mean, all of them. I mean, we know the Triangle Waste Factory, and obviously because we can't name any of the disasters that killed men in factories during the Industrial Revolution. I can't think of any off of the top of my head, any named disasters that majority affected men. That means that they didn't exist. They didn't happen. Because if they had happened, we would, of course, have cared enough about men and the deaths of men to constantly refer to them and deal with them. So obviously men never died in industrial accidents, ever, because we just can't name. Okay, can Benny, Brian, can you name any large-scale industrial accidents that happened around the time of the shirtwaist Triangle Shirtwaist Fire that was majority victimized men mostly?
No. I'm sure if I looked it up, I could find something, but no, nothing comes.
Yeah, but nothing that's been publicized as much as this one that victimized women. But of course, we live in a society.
Well, you got to thank.
Hates women.
You just got to thank.
Just hates us.
Schneiderman.
My work experience has been diverse, and prior to academic work included factory production using toxic chemicals and environmental community development in working class areas. So she is claiming some understanding of these things. For me, I have never submitted a single report, thesis, or study that has ever been relative to who I am. I'm just putting that out there. I mean, I know I'm in a different field, I'm in a different focus, but who I am really does not matter. Just
can I point something out there? When you're dealing with working class or rural populations, you're far more likely as a woman, as a rural woman or a working class woman, to end up becoming a scholar than a rural or working class man. So the fact that she had factory work and then ended up in an academic context is what I'm assuming. That is something that you might consider a female privilege, a female rural and working class privilege. Because, and this happened in the town that I live in currently with my husband. First of all, he was encouraged not to get his high school diploma. Like, he was brought into the public principal's office, and they told him, there's no point for you to continue. Just go get a labor job. And he just stuck it out because he was determined to do so. Mm-hmm. And so his graduating class was something like 24 girls and 6 boys. Or 6 young men, 24 young women and 6 young men. It might have even been less than 6. But this is a huge problem in rural areas. And the thing is that a lot of rural girls are encouraged to go into the cities and get education. And if she ever did, or we had ever did a study on the rates of rural individuals and working class individuals, male versus female, that actually have the option to end up in a scholarly pursuit, I think it would be eye-opening, because I'm pretty sure it's almost completely closed off from rural and working class boys. They don't have any scholarships available to them. They are not encouraged. They're not encouraged to pursue it. In fact, many of them are encouraged not even to get their GED. They're encouraged just to drop out of high school
and work.
And work. And I would love to see those kinds of statistics. I would love some qualification on what she's saying here, because I see what I've picked out here is that she is unbelievably privileged to be able to even pursue a scholarly education,
even as
from
a gypsy.
A working class. Even as a gypsy.
Even as a gypsy. That's her word. That's her word.
That's her word.
I'm just.
Yeah, no, she's allowed to use that. Quote, women have traditionally been the leaders and activists in the environmental justice movement. It is speculated that this is because men have more of a vested interest in the economic and political institutions. Okay, let's just take that out. So, by flip side then, if women were responsible for supporting themselves and supporting their children without any help, or even if they were the breadwinners of the family, then maybe they wouldn't be the activists and leaders in the environmental justice movement by default, right? Because what this posits is, well,
that means they wouldn't have the leisure time to be able to pursue environmental justice movement.
But this isn't really explored in this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, let's stick with this. Let's even just chew it. Let's move it around our mouth, right? So if women were in control of their own destinies financially, if they chose to be, and if they were the breadwinners and they took on the stuff and said, no, I'm going to look after myself, I'm going to look after my kids, I'm not taking money, I am the breadwinner, I'm the head of the household, then what this is insinuating to me is that perhaps they would be less environmental activists because they would be in business. But again, this is not a gendered thing. This is a breadwinner. This is an economic inventor. This is an innovator thing. This is who is responsible thing. And this one little kernel, this nougat of diamond, is completely lost in the rest of it. Because the reality is that if you're in charge of making the money, if you have this responsibility, if you cannot depend on handouts and you cannot depend on sympathy, the kindness of others, I know apparently cinnamon, it's not as good as Karen's, what can you do, right? But anyway, that's a chat reference. But if women had all this responsibility, would they still be these activists? Or would they have the same necessity bottom line as the men who are simply trying to feed themselves and their dependents? But this isn't explored. Nope.
There is some evidence from the environmental justice, geography, and development fields that there are gender disparities in terms of environmental burdens and access to environmental goods. Female-headed households are more likely to be found in polluted and environmentally degraded areas.
I loved this.
They are also more likely to be subject to indoor air pollution as a result of their cooking responsibilities and the use of solid fuel cookers. Women have to cook, and cooking kills them. This is the patriarchy. We bring them stoves and gas and everything, and it's part of the problem.
Yeah, but you say single moms are part of the fucking problem and they're not raising their kids right and not...
Yeah.
But it's right here in this study.
If they use microwaves too much, it's part of the problem. If they order out all the time, they're getting like processed food, and that's part of the problem. And
this is the one part of this study I thought was pretty good. So I'm like, so maybe there's an argument for two-parent households, so dads may be important. Awesome. Go with that. Go with it. Run with it. Go.
I just want to slip in here just for a second. Yeah. All right, so female-headed households are more likely to be found in polluted and environmentally degraded areas. And this is my note that I wrote. Wouldn't that suggest men are affording women their resources, and that when there isn't a man to take the brunt of the harms associated with maintaining a family, a woman has to? Now, here's the thing. You could also go back, 200 years or maybe 2,000 years, and you could point out that those families that don't have a slave live in more environmentally degraded areas. But that doesn't really prove that slaves have privilege. Like it's a slave privilege that when they're in a family, that family is better off.
The difficulty with this study for me is it says a lot of things that on face are quite true. Like if you get down to distributional environmental justice, you get men use cars more than women. Okay. When we get into natural disasters, we get into evidence suggests that women are at greater risk than men with higher mortality rates, sick during environmental disasters. Not sick, but you know what I mean, in context. I don't disagree with these things. My question is, and this gets to the whole summary about patriarchy, is this due to patriarchy, or is there something else going on? Is it really men's fault that women may be less likely to have resources to adapt to or avoid environmental problems? Or is there something in women's choices that are contributing to this? And this doesn't even explore the possibility that perhaps women are making choices that do not give them the skills they need to survive natural disasters without the help of men. So that's my perspective.
Yeah.
So on face, there are things here that are like, okay, I can see that. But when it doesn't get into anything else behind it besides it's a patriarchy, that's where they lose me, because they're not looking at the whole thing.
Of course
They found
not.
a convenient scapegoat to blame everything on.
Yeah.
And again, no real change, no help, no improvement, betterment will actually come if you simply blame instead of going, okay, what can we do differently? We, as in, if the women, not to put too fine a point on it, and I'm going to be kind of a cunt here, but if women are most affected by these things, then shouldn't the question be, well, women, what the fuck are you doing, you idiots?
Mhm.
Why aren't you making changes that make you better at dealing with these things? What's wrong with you?
In addition, women
Yeah.
are less likely to be able to afford to access adequate food, energy for heating and cooking, parks and green spaces, and other environmental resources. For example, they are more likely to experience fuel poverty because of their lower incomes and increased likelihood of living in draughty, poorly insulated, or damp accommodations. Women are also more likely to make food sacrifices for other family members when there are food shortages in a household. Furthermore,
Can I just point something out? The only statistical evidence we have towards that suggests that men are more vulnerable in famines. Like they die more often. Men die considerably more often in famines. That's the only citation that I know even related to this thing. Oh wait, she has a citation. Let's see. Let me follow that to its logical conclusion.
all right,
Food security and women's health: a feminist perspective for international social work.
must be.
Okay, you know what? I have a sinking suspicion that doesn't involve an actual study or any kind of
Right.
statistics. So let's just punt that off the table. The only statistics I've seen have shown that men are more vulnerable in famines. They're more likely to starve to death, not women. So just wanted to put that out there.
Of course. Furthermore, they are more likely to be impacted by climate change, since it is a risk
Here we go.
multiplier impacting on populations that are already disadvantaged. So wait a minute, read it again. Furthermore, they are more likely to be impacted by climate change, since it is a risk multiplier impacting on populations that are already disadvantaged. So climate change disproportionately affects populations that are disadvantaged. Women, because they are by default disadvantaged, are more disadvantaged than the men in those climates. That is what
I
is
noted
being
that
asserted
too.
there. Okay.
I noted that too.
When environmental disasters such as earthquakes and hurricanes occur, evidence suggests that women are at greater risk than men with higher mortality rates, which is something that Bunny said. Meanwhile, the people that are probably out there trying to, I don't know, like the first responders, the people that are trying to help people when these sort of like natural disasters happen, the people who are on call to go and rescue people and shit when there are earthquakes and hurricanes are men, mostly, right? The Coast Guard and all that. There is also evidence that male violence against women increases in the wake of natural disasters as a result of women's oppression more generally and their lack of inclusion in disaster responses.
Okay,
Yeah,
38.
this
Men
like shot to
are
the
more-
universe for me.
Men
Like-
beat their wives after hurricanes, basically, is what it says.
Waves of violence. Women in post-tsunami Sri Lanka.
Oh my God.
That's one study.
Yeah. Yeah. They were mad at the
let me see.
tsunami and took it out on their wives. That's basically what happened.
Okay, abstract. Natural disasters do not exist in isolation from the social and cultural constructs that marginalize women and place them at risk in violence. Okay, let me see if there's any. No,
Yeah,
there's, this paper describes a community-based and developed program intended to support women and to reduce incidents of sexual and gender-based violence in post-tsunami Sri Lanka. Preliminary data from the project is used to highlight some of the needs of women as well as the challenges in addressing gender-based violence. Okay, I'm going to look at this. You guys go ahead.
Okay.
I was just going to say I would
You
really
can dive into it.
I would really like to see the entire breadth of studies about women having higher mortality rates. Which natural disasters are they doing? Because women have natural advantages in some kinds of natural disasters.
Oh,
God, I have to
Like
read this.
famine, like you said, right? Like famine, for
Mhm.
example. I mean, we just have a higher body fat and a
Drought,
different metabolism,
perhaps?
right? Drought.
Okay,
But I mean, what are they even talking about? And higher mortality rates. Are they factoring in the aspect of choice?
Well,
Are they factoring in men choosing to put themselves in dangerous situations to protect their families? Or even, frankly, women? Are they factoring choice in? Like, what are their parameters here?
I reviewed the evidence for her assertion that women experience violence after natural disaster.
mhm.
And it wasn't based on a study. Surprise. It wasn't based on any kind of statistics. As
Woot.
far as I can tell, it was based on 3 anecdotes. Or a few anecdotes
Okay, anecdotes.
about how the behavior of men in basically a disaster. So that we're talking about a situation that is extremely stressful. So here's one of the quotes. It's all just quotes, just anecdotes. One of the hardest things for us to understand is that in face of such disaster, our Sri Lankan men will do this. It's breaking our hearts. But do what? Okay, so this is just a participant. Like basically what they're doing is they have this group and they're having a group conversation about this issue. It's not statistics. It's just a self-help group. And so here are the anecdotes that came out of this particular self-help group. There was a 13-year-old girl who was gang raped, but the police kept saying there were no complaints. Maybe
What?
there weren't.
Sorry?
Well,
Wow.
what were the police supposed to do if there were no complaints? We're investigating the vague rumor of a 13-year-old being gang raped. Does anybody have any leads? No? Okay, but can we move on to something a little more pressing? Women are destitute. They don't even have 10 rupees. First, they need counseling, and then we need to talk with them about livelihood. And the men aren't destitute. Of course, all of the men struck by this tsunami have the tsunami brought like hundreds of thousands of rupees to the men, but not any to the women because it was a patriarchal tsunami, don't you say? Here's the red flag. Yeah, the methodology, storyboard methodology generated qualitative data.
Oh.
They used the storyboards. They storyboarded their anecdotes, and that makes it qualitative data.
Qualitative data meaning pictures? Like, well, technically, I have no idea. Like,
Look at these crayon paintings. This is
qualitative.
totally scientific, yo. I just realized something about feminist researchers. They're using qualitative data incorrectly. Qualitative data doesn't mean crayon drawings. It means things like Brian is male. That's a qualitative. It's not actually a number. Being male
could
is
could be quantitative if we did a karyotype.
Oh,
A karyotype.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but for the most part, Brian being like male, heterosexual, Puerto Rican, those are qualitative factors or qualitative features of Brian. Now, that has absolutely but nothing to do with how feminists use the term qualitative.
Yeah. Observation. Yeah.
Which is
qualitative just means observational, essentially.
Yeah.
But not measured, right?
So they're just basically throwing this word out to sound scientific-y. I despair.
Yeah.
I despair.
There's room for qualitative data. I'm not a big fan of it myself, of course, because I'm a bit more primitive than that. I like numbers and I like measurements and I like things I can touch and feel and go, this is what this is. I can measure it. I can do tests. It's the same every time. Yay. Mm-hmm. However, there is room for qualitative data mostly because it leads the way for us to know what measurements to take sometimes. Does that make sense? If we can observe trends, then we can come up with ideas that make us go, I wonder if this is true. And then we can go to the quantitative end of things and try and get a bit more hard and fast, as we say.
We hope you enjoyed this clip show. If there was a clip from these shows you think we should have shown, please leave a comment on the video and include a timestamp. Thank you, and Badger on.